Hey, welcome to another episode of Coffee HEMA with me, Jamie McKeever. Today I want to talk about some themes I'm going to be talking about for the next few videos, but I want to talk specifically about the difference between a fencing style and a fencing system. And I'll probably be doing a bit more detail on each of those concepts in later videos, but I want to draw a distinction between them that I think most people don't necessarily think very clearly about. And these are my terms, but I think they broadly cover kind of two quite distinct things, and it's important to keep them separate. So one thing that happened relatively recently, I had a comment from someone. They said to me, it's interesting, like, oh, you guys are from the same club, or you folks are from the same club, but none of you really fence the same way. And like, what's that about? Like, how come you're not all fencing in kind of the same style, same system, whatever that is? I disagree. But I think the way I disagree is because of this distinction between these two slightly different concepts, right? So for me, a system, right, a fencing system, the system we all fence under is essentially a framework, right? And it talks about things like how do you decide which tactical approach to take. It's a bunch of techniques, yeah, they're in that, but they're linked to a tactical idea. It's not the techniques that stand alone. It's when do you do this, when do you do that, or rather, what circumstances is a particular technique useful for. It's a way of breaking down a fight, right? To be able to understand what the different components are. That kind of concept, that's part of your system. It's a guard structure. It's the guards that you use, the guards you adopt, and how they kind of flow together or not and fit together. And it's the way you look at your opponent. You say, what are they doing? And you break it down into some more manageable components than anything, right? And thinking about things like, oh, they're doing strong descending cuts, or they're trying to attack me in one tempo defenses rather than two tempo defenses, or they're always following up an attack with another attack, right? That kind of way of breaking it and structuring it, that's the system, right? And I mostly follow Vardy's longsword system, which I think has very strong overlaps to Bolognese sources. So I have a lot of heavily influenced components from Bolognese, where I use that to sort of elaborate on Vardy's system, and the things where he's got the idea and it's poorly formed, I'll use the Bolognese sources to kind of make it a bit more fleshed out. But by and large, what I teach, right, in longsword classes is that system, right? Things in that system. But it does result in a lot of my fences not necessarily doing the same thing, right? And if I think about my fellow instructors, Dan, John, Owen, Kelsey, who's come on, and others who come through, or sort of senior students, or any of them, like Alex, Mads, whatever, they all do have different flavors to how they approach fencing. And those approaches are, as far as I'm concerned, all within the same system, but they are different styles, right? And what's happened is that people have adapted, within the framework to essentially focus on the things that work for them, right? They might work for them because that fits into the natural body type. You're very tall, you've got a better chance of being able to fence at long distance, although plenty of short people are quite good at it, right? Long measure, rather. If you're quite solid, maybe a grapple kind of favors you better. So a lot of people gravitate naturally to the things that favor their body type, right? And emphasize those aspects of the system, right, more than other ones. Others might do it just because of preference, right? I'm quite tall, but I prefer a middle kind of grappling kind of style. So I focus more on that, right? And it's not that I can't do the long play kind of thing. But it's just not where I mostly focus, and I focus on a slightly different aspect, right? And the choice to kind of gravitate to one area or another of the system is largely a personal choice. It's partly structured by body shape, type, size, all that kind of stuff. But it could also be, structured by past things that you've done, personal preferences, right? Maybe you are built perfectly for grappling, and you just don't like grappling, and you don't want to do it. Right, it's still always linking back to the system that they've all been taught. They're all coming from the same starting point, but you will naturally start to develop certain things within it that you like versus others. And systems don't determine everything, right? So I know some fencers who have particular patterns of strike that they like, right? It might be they do a high strike and then a low strike, or this and that, or whatever it happens to be, right? And as long as it's not too much of a pattern, that's not necessarily a problem. And that particular chain of one cut to the next cut isn't necessarily in Vardy, but that cut is and that cut is. And so it's perfectly in line with the system that we're talking about, you can describe it in the terms of the system as a cut followed by another cut and all this kind of stuff. And the reason why we have so many fences that fence to a common system and have slightly different styles is because I deliberately want that to happen, right? And actually, most of my exercises, as I talked about many things before, have a degree of choice for the individual to focus on. Allow them to do things as they choose, right? Which allows them to develop their own style as part of a structured drill with another person. That means that they can drill according to their own specific needs. And I think that's quite an important thing to actually try and bake in by design, right? And I think a lot of the stuff I've talked about random practice, about all this kind of stuff, helps on that one. But you should have it as explicitly as your goal. Because I think trying to force everybody to fence to a particular style, everybody must fence this way, will mean a lot of people will not necessarily be doing either what they are best at or what they enjoy the most, right? And actually actively encouraging people to start thinking about what works for them, what works well for them, and developing in those areas is an important part of having a well-structured class. It's quite challenging sometimes in a group class, right? And that's why sort of more free exercise design is important to allow people to do it themselves. One thing I've not been very good at, and what I'm hoping to get much better at this year, is kind of more explicitly knowing what people are trying to go for, whether they're trying to develop what they're already good at more, or trying to develop some other aspects of their style more, and give them slightly more tailored advice to do that. Private lessons are better for that, but I've never really had the capacity or the space to do private lessons, sadly. That might change now I've got the new venue, but certainly it's a great way of doing it. But all in all, right, this variety of style is something that you should celebrate and you should encourage and you should go for. As well as helping them as a fencer, whoever's developing their style, it will help you and everybody else, because it will mean that you are much better at adapting to different styles, right? If everybody fences in exactly the same way in your club, and I see this quite a lot actually, right? That clubs who are quite insular, everybody fences the same way, and then they go out and suddenly they struggle against somebody who fences in a completely different way to what they expect, right? So all in all, what I want to say is style and system are different. System is a framework. Style is the way that you personally have put that framework together. You should be teaching a system, but you should also be helping people develop their style, because everybody will benefit from that, including you as a teacher. Thanks for watching.